Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here on this Sunday. I hope you guys have had a great weekend. Mine's been very relaxing. I just kind of laid in my bed a lot of the day yesterday and watched TV and played a video game. I love Fallout 76. That's my jam. So whenever I have a minute, I hop on there just to chill out. I have a plan to do a backstory at some point this week on this new Samuel Haskell case out of California. He is accused of murdering and dismembering his wife. And the last I heard, his in-laws are also missing. His dad is an agent who's had some very A-list clientele. He was actually caught on surveillance dumping part of her body in a dumpster. So just a crazy case. It's a little hard covering a trial. And we have Caitlin Armstrong kicking back up tomorrow. We didn't have any court on Friday. So look for that at some point this week. Also, thanks to everybody who is sending case suggestions. I look at all of them and I'm going to pick a few to do over the holidays because it's typically pretty quiet on the court front during holidays. Not a lot of hearings going on, not a lot of trials going on. So I'm going to pick 3 or 4 that you guys have suggested and do some backstories and up to what we know now. Also going to be finishing up Ellen Greenberg in the next few weeks. For those of you that have Patreon, we have our live tonight. I've got a link on the page for 8 p.m. I know some people forget to check, so I wanted to put this out on here just in case you listen to this before you see the link tonight. We're going to go at 8 p.m. We'll go at least an hour, maybe a little longer. There's a lot to talk about. Thanks to everybody for your donations. I appreciate your generosity so much. I have to give a big thank you to Susan for this really pretty tribute to my dog Thunder that passed away a couple of months ago. She sent this a while back and I've had it hanging up. So that's why I keep forgetting to put it on here, even though I look at it multiple times a day. Also, thanks to Karen for this calendar. It's so cute. She works at a donkey rescue and she sent me this calendar that says we have the best asses. And it's just the cutest little calendar. Again, I've had this hanging up as well. So but you go inside and every month is one of their donkeys featured. It's really cute. I'm going to put a link to their website in the description here. You can check that out. Just want to thank both of them so much for taking the time to send me something. I love getting little things in the mail. People email and ask where they can send things to. If you look in the link in the description of every podcast video, you'll see something that says all links. Every link I have is in there, including the mailing address. So thank you guys. It's like Christmas when I go check my P.O. box sometimes. Speaking of Christmas, I have Christmas merch on sale, 15% off. You can use code Sherlock15 at checkout. I love designing t-shirts for the store. Wanted to do a little early Black Friday shopping. One has only here for my alibi. Another says Santa saw that. Then we have St. Nick's bail bonds, breaking and entering champ. Merry Christmas, you filthy alibier, and you better have an alibi. I'll be adding some more stuff in the next few days. I'm going to let this sale go for the next 2 weeks. So get your merch. There's more than shirts. I have ornaments. I have all kinds of little goodies in there. And I try to keep the prices reasonable. I know how it is when you want merch, but some things, can get really pricey. So I try to go with companies that are reasonable without sacrificing quality. Music fact of the day, Billie Holiday. What a timeless, amazing voice. I absolutely love Billie Holiday. My pop raised me on her. I credit my grandfather for my love of music. He had me listening from the time I was very little. Some of my fondest memories are dancing in the living room with him as a very, very small kid. Miss him every day. But Billie Holiday dropped out of school in the 5th grade and found a job running errands in a brothel. I saw that on a documentary on PBS about her just this weekend, yesterday, when I was a slug in my bed. What a beautiful, beautiful woman. If you're on YouTube, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, like the video, hit the bell notification if you want updates when I post new content. We are going to jump in Kouri Richins. Some of this stuff is not new news, but we're going to go ahead and catch you guys up now. She is accused of killing her husband with fentanyl, went on to write a children's book about grief, and subsequently got arrested. She had a hearing about a week and a half ago about several matters, including her request to have the charges dismissed due to that walk the dog letter. Prosecutors allege she was participating in witness tampering, where she held this letter up and let her mom read it, where she was instructing her brother to say that her husband got the fentanyl on these big game hunting trips to Mexico. Her attorney, Sky Lazaro, said that the state crossed a line and characterized Kouri as being guilty of witness tampering, even though they didn't file any additional charges, and accusing her of that, it could impact her right to a fair trial. Sky said the problem here is there is a local, global, national media where the state has interpreted the letter how they want and has put out to the world that all of our potential jurors know that Kouri is lying, that her witnesses are lying, and that her theory is false. On the flip side, the state was asking to have Kouri banned from contacting her mother and her brother. On the flip side, the state wanted to prohibit Kouri from being able to contact her mom and her brother, both of which were part of that letter. Her mom was shown the letter and in there was instructed to tell her brother what to say about how Eric Richins came in possession of the fentanyl. It's alleged that Kouri went through somebody that worked for her and got it through a third party. And they were leaving that stuff with the money at different residences that Kouri was flipping or handed it off. Ultimately, the judge denied that motion to dismiss the case, saying that the state didn't violate the law and the letter doesn't impact her right to a fair trial. But also, he said that the jail has recording devices and other ways to monitor Kouri's communication, and that way the state can monitor communications with people on the outside. But he said that a third-party attorney would review the letter to make sure there was no attorney-client privilege within that letter. The judge denied the state's motion to prevent her from contacting her mom and brother, saying the defendant has a First Amendment right to correspond with who she pleases and to say what she likes. He denied a gag order and also contempt sanctions against the state. He did acknowledge the pre-trial publicity in the case before the letter was made public, but he let the state know he wasn't happy that they released that letter publicly, saying, "My biggest fear that we have is finding a jury pool that hasn't already been tainted by the prosecution." Some pretty strong words directed towards them. He said there would be a very lengthy jury selection process to ensure that Kouri gets a fair trial. The judge also ordered that her assets be frozen until her trial is over. In his decision, the judge said there is substantial evidence supporting the aggravated murder charge, and the Slayer statute could come into play should she be convicted. The law prevents killers from profiting off of their crimes. He gave Eric's family a formal and financial interest in Kouri's estate as collateral, just in case she were to transfer money or assets that could later be determined to belong to Eric's family. The court will consider a possible transfer or disbursement in the future if it's needed so she can pay for her attorney. Eric's sister, Kouri Richins Benson, expressed concern in a filing that Kouri's using money from a life insurance policy or other proceeds that she wrongfully took. The judge established a constructive trust on all the property and the assets that Kouri or her company has. The judge also denied a motion to appoint a receiver or trustee's bond as requested by Eric's estate. 4 of the properties that she owned were foreclosed on in September. The judge said he would not divert any potential monies from the foreclosures, again citing her need to pay her attorneys. Where does the civil case stand? As far as the civil case against Kouri, the judge hit pause on that civil suit filed by Eric's family. They're asking $13 million in the wrongful death lawsuit. He wants the state and the defense to agree on whether or not the civil suits should proceed with her criminal case. Eric's family added Kouri's mom, Lisa, and her brother, Ronnie, as defendants back in July, saying that the two of them are helping Kouri to siphon assets. Kouri's brother is an authorized representative of her business, and after her arrest, she gave him power of attorney to do business on her behalf. Ronnie transferred ownership of property owned by Kouri's business back to their mother. The property was an asset that Eric's family could have gotten if they win the lawsuit. Ronnie said that Eric's family shouldn't be able to come after his mother's house, calling the Richins family narcissistic and greedy and strictly out for money. Kouri's mom and brother built the home with a self-help grant from the Department of Agriculture. It's a program to help low-income individuals. And Kouri's mom said that's always been her home, and now the records reflect that. She says the move was legitimate and she just took Kouri's name off her house. A part of the lawsuit where Eric's family alleges Kouri is trying to hide assets from them will still move forward, though. Her mom and her 2 brothers both were on Good Morning America before this court appearance. Her mom, Lisa, said, "I do not believe in my heart Kouri could ever not just kill Eric, but kill anything or anyone." She also said, as a couple, Eric and Kouri were very much in love and they were happy. Her brother Ronnie said that she loves her boys way too much to take their father away from them. And he also said that Eric loved to party and have a good time. The simplest answer is often the correct one. It was most likely an accidental overdose. Her mom said that maybe Eric got pain pills without knowing that there was fentanyl in them. That's kind of the latest in her case. We'll keep you posted. They really are fighting that family all the way. Moving on to Richard Allen, who is the defendant in the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German, also known as the Delphi murders. Richard's civil attorneys are asking the Indiana Supreme Court to remove Judge Gull from the case and reinstate his former attorneys, Andrew Baldwin and Bradley Rozzi. They were essentially, according to them, forced to withdraw from the case. Andrew Baldwin did, but Bradley Rozzi never did, and he says he has no intentions. She also recently denied a motion by them to just work pro bono on the case. Also, the civil attorneys are asking to set a date to trial for 70 days after a decision is made about reinstating the former attorneys. They say that doing so would ensure moving forward that Richard Allen receives his fundamental rights to counsel. The Indiana Supreme Court Justice Loretta Rush gave both sides until November 16th to have all filings in before she takes these issues under advisement. Meanwhile, Judge Gull has asked for the Supreme Court more time to respond to the allegations that she's limited public access documents in the case. The Indiana Attorney General actually refused to represent her, and Judge Gull said that she needed more time to find an attorney to represent her. She has November 16th to respond to that. The Supreme Court has also ordered that Judge Gull hand over the transcripts from that secret chambers meeting where these attorneys for Richard Allen say they were essentially ambushed and forced to resign. And if she doesn't want to turn over the transcript, she has until November 27th to respond why she won't. Things are heating up in Delphi, and in the midst of it, you have families who are just kind of in limbo. Richard Allen deserves a right to a fair trial, and at the same time, this is really just delayed the whole case. We were supposed to go to trial in January, and now who knows? We'll keep you posted. Moving on to Lindsay Shiver, Bahama Mama, the murder for hire plot. She is accused of trying to hire a hitman to kill her husband. Now, her boyfriend, Terrence Bethel, and another man, Farron Newbold Jr., have been charged in this conspiracy. They're all three out on bond while awaiting trial. Lindsay cannot leave the Bahamas as part of a condition of her release. Last month, a magistrate in the Bahamas granted the prosecution's request to have more time to turn over discovery. Her attorney told USA Today last month the evidence will demonstrate Lindsay's innocence, and she is facing the legal process with complete transparency and honesty. Throughout this ordeal, Lindsay's number one priority is the well-being and welfare of her three young children. She is eager to resolve this matter as swiftly as possible so she can get back to her family and continue being a great mother. Lindsay and her co-conspirators face 35 to 60 years in prison if convicted. Now, a local tutor at a law school in the Bahamas said his opinion would be if Lindsay and company were convicted, they may get 15 to 20 years since the murder wasn't actually carried out. In other news, her divorce attorney quit. The attorney did not give a specific reason for withdrawing. Her estranged husband, Robert, has a new love. He's dating Chrisley Knows Best star Savannah Chrisley. Her parents, Todd and Julie Chrisley, are in federal prison for federal bank fraud and tax evasion. They were convicted in June of last year. Todd was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Julie was sentenced to 7. Savannah said that she sent Robert a DM after news of this alleged murder for hire plot hit the news. She doesn't expect her dad to meet Robert anytime soon. She told Entertainment Tonight, Dad is very against it just because he's not going to see me in this atmosphere and this environment. And I feel like it's more of a male pride type of thing. On the other hand, her mom is totally up to meeting him. Todd is serving his time in a Florida federal prison, and Julie is in a federal prison in Kentucky. Savannah also says that since she's been outspoken against the treatment her parents are receiving in prison, her dad is being singled out by prison guards at the prison he's currently at. She said also that his celebrity status has contributed to this alleged mistreatment. She told Entertainment Tonight, that's been the toughest part, more so for dad. There's been a lot of retaliation, so we have to worry about him. Right now, they're trying to move him from the facility he's at now because the latest things I've posted on Instagram. Right now, they're trying to move him from the facility he's at now because of the latest things that I've posted on Instagram. And that's the tough part. The moment you start speaking out, you have to pay for it. She alleges that the prison guards are trying to steal his commissary money and also preventing him from talking to his attorney. Todd and Julie's attorney, Jay Sturgent, told Fox News Digital Todd Chrisley was singled out in reference to the non-processing of his CARES Act application. Someone was allowed to take a photo of him while he was sleeping, and this is a result of his celebrity status. The living conditions are horrible, and it was reported to me that there was a poisonous snake that got into Julie's cell area. As of this day, she is sitting in 100-degree temperatures with no air conditions, and no one seems to care. Maybe it's a little less hot now because it's November. Todd has had no air conditioning. Plumbing conditions are bad. There's mold and fungus everywhere and no one seems to care. Todd was making an application under the CARES Act, which was purposely not processed administratively for himself as well as other inmates. He submitted it, but the person that was administrating it and was in charge of processing it decided that she didn't want to do that. And then the time period for the application expired. So he wasn't given any due consideration with reference to being admitted to home confinement or taking advantage of some type of probationary program. Essentially, he asked to serve the rest of his sentence under home confinement through the CARES Act. The CARES Act was passed in 2020, which allowed some federal prisoners to serve their sentences at home due to COVID. To qualify, the inmate would need a health reason and a nonviolent offense. Moving on to Chad Daybell. His attorney, John Pryor, has filed a motion asking for death to be taken off the table. The argument is that Lori was more culpable in the murders of JJ, Tylee, and Tammy than Chad was, and she didn't face the death penalty. Well, let's go through the filing real quick. He says in Lori's trial, the state consistently argued that Lori was the most culpable in the murders and also set the conspiracy in motion, manipulating both Chad and her brother, Alex Cox, and remained in charge of the plan throughout. As the state plainly put it, Lori manipulated Chad through emotional and sexual control, and Chad wasn't going to act without Lori saying so. Even when two co-defendants are equally culpable, it is unconstitutional and unacceptable to subject one to the most extreme punishment available, while the other did not face that possibility. They quote the state from Lori's trial where they say the plan was driven by Lori for sex, power, and money. And another quote, there is one common thread through these murders, Lori Vallow. She is the one person who ties these all together. She's moving this plan forward. There's no question Tylee, JJ, and Tammy were murdered. Who is the common thread? Lori. Another quote, she is the killer. Lori is the connection to the deaths. Lori manipulated Alex Cox and Chad Daybell to follow her. Lori manipulated Alex Cox through religion. She groomed Alex Cox. Chad's telling Lori what she wants to hear. She reinforces him with sexual behavior. Lori led the alleged conspiracy throughout. Lori is the main source of information to Alex, and Alex does what Lori tells him. Lori handed JJ off to Alex Cox. Lori is telling Alex what to do. In these messages, you never see Alex tell her what to do. Melanie Gibb responded, okay, Captain. Why does she say, okay, Captain? Because Lori's in charge. Despite the state's consistent argument that Lori groomed Alex, continued to manipulate him, then handed her son off to be killed by Alex, only Chad faces the death penalty. The only person alleged to be the manipulative follower is facing the possibility of the death penalty. The argument says a sentence is constitutional only when it's proportionate both to the facts of the crime and the offender's relative culpability. A crime may be one that inflicts hurt and horror on the victim and cause revulsion in society, and the jury represents it. The argument mainly says it's not constitutional to have one co-defendant eligible for death and the other not. He also cites a case in Kentucky where two people robbed a motel. The one who pulled the trigger pled guilty to first-degree murder and got life. The co-defendant who participated in the planning but didn't pull the trigger took it to trial and got death. The decision in part on that case read, "We pride ourselves in a system of justice that requires equality before the law. Defendants should not be treated differently upon the same or similar facts. When the facts are the same, the law should be the same. The imposition of the death sentence in this case is clearly not equal justice under the law. We recognize the validity of the Florida death penalty statute, But it is our opinion the imposition of the death penalty under the facts of this case would be an unconstitutional application under Furman versus Georgia. Another case is cited in this filing. It's Hazen versus State. That's a case where 3 defendants were involved in a robbery, sexual assault, and a murder. One defendant, who was not the trigger man, pled guilty and flipped on the other 2, testifying against them in court. The other non-trigger man was sentenced to death. The court overturned the death sentence, saying that the sentence was disproportionate as the defendant was less culpable than the non-trigger man co-defendant. Another filing that he made, there were 3 that were posted last week, a motion in limine to limit state to consistent arguments on defendant's relative culpability notice of hearing. The filing, it begins a lot like the other, saying that the states made clear Lori was the driving force behind the murders. Defense attorney Pryor said it would violate principles of fundamental fairness, due process, and the prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment to allow the state to present a different core theory in prosecuting Chad. He asked that the state be limited to presenting the same theory of its case in any trial against him pursuant to the 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments. It says that Chad and Lori's cases were severed and Lori was convicted on all counts. He cites a case called Thompson versus Calderon, where the conviction was overturned, saying it is well established that when no new significant evidence comes to light, a prosecutor cannot, in order to convict 2 defendants at separate trials, offer inconsistent theories and facts regarding the same crime. It would be inconsistent to argue that Chad's alleged actions were taken of his own accord, free from manipulation or coercion. In order to remain consistent with the core of the state's case against Lori, the state must be limited to arguing that Chad followed Lori's leads throughout the alleged conspiracy. He also filed a motion to strike the death penalty. We'll see what happens. I don't think this is going anywhere at all. I think they're going to keep death on the table. It's not like the reason that death was taken off for her had anything to do with the facts of the case. It was just a technicality, really. Moving on to Rex Heuermann, Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison. He's resigning from his position. This is really suspicious to me because, as we know, when we talked about this a while back, the DA, Ray Tierney, was none too happy about that press conference that Mr. Harrison did with victim's family attorney John Ray. That's where the attorney relayed a bunch of new information from witnesses who had run-ins, not only with Rex, but 2 of the victims years ago. I said on that original episode when we talked about this press conference, I think it's great that some women in this line of work feel comfortable talking to maybe this attorney as opposed to the police. A lot of women who do sex work have had negative run-ins with the law and maybe just really hesitant to come forward. It's who cares how you get the information as long as you get it and it can be validated. I don't know why the DA got so upset. I'm not the DA, but still, I know that he probably wants to keep this investigation within that task force, but that's not how the world works sometimes. And sometimes you have to sort of bend. And I thought it was a huge statement that Rodney Harrison stood up there with this attorney and let him have the podium essentially and said, I don't care how we get the information. Let's just get it. The more people we can get essentially. And I hated to hear that because he really seemed like he was just passionate about justice for these victims and also maybe learning more than what this task force may know now. I think it's a shame for the victims and the victims' families, and also for witnesses who maybe want to tell their story but don't want to go to cops. I'm sure some of these women would just assume keep this stuff to themselves and actually go to law enforcement. Thought it was a big deal. You had the police commissioner standing there with this attorney. His wife, Asa, is said to be working with a major streaming service. It was reported that a lot of people were at their house just recently. These people had lighting and camera equipment and were taking the family to and from another home just a couple of blocks away. Sometimes they'll do that when they're filming a documentary. You don't necessarily film in somebody's house. It might be a place they've rented out, a hotel room or something like that. And I figure that may be the case here. Also, she visited him in jail for the first time since his arrest on July 13th, just last week. She filed for divorce just days after his arrest, and a spokesperson for the jail said that Rex Heuermann is entitled to visits like everybody else, and the visits are an hour long. His wife is suing the FBI for damages done to her home during that 12-day search warrant, and her attorney told the Daily Mail that she's actually planning to attend the trial to see the evidence for herself and not what John Ray or podcasters are saying. Come on, Asa. Some of us just saying what the facts are, honey. We ain't bashing you. So that's it for today. I just wanted to take some time to update on these cases we've been following. If anything comes up with other cases this week, I'll try to hop on and do a quick episode. But that's it for Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow evening with a new recap on the Caitlin Armstrong trial. I think tomorrow's day 7 of testimony. I really am interested in seeing her sister's testimony, see what she has to say. I've always been curious if Caitlin stole that passport or if her sister gave it to her. Maybe we'll find out this week. By the way, the trial is now expected to maybe last up to Thanksgiving. So a little slower than originally thought, but justice for Mo, we're not on a timetable, right? Okay, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day.